We lost one.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe aliens got her. I don't know.
Well, I'm kind of lucky. I have my dishwasher going, so this bought me a little bit of time.
It's a chemistry day here. It's pre-harvest chemistry
Oh.
time.
Okay, we're live.
And we're missing Arna.
All right, we're live, but we're missing Arna. So I'm going to kill some time here, and we will start with. Okay, I'm going to turn off my replay screen here. Sorry, it's a little distracting. I'm hearing myself about 30 seconds later. But welcome, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but thank you, Vanessa, for getting us online. And hello to everyone joining us at home on YouTube. This is the 2022 Oregon Country Fair Board Candidates Forum, brought to you by the Get Out the Vote team. Before we start with our housekeeping announcements, I'd like to do a land recognition. We begin with the acknowledgement that the land that we are on is the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of this very land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disrupted and destroyed. We begin our event with humility and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya. Okay, we're going to do these housekeeping announcements as quickly as possible so we can get to our wonderful candidates. Real quick, I want to give just a couple thank yous to the elections committee, of course, who takes the thousands of fair family registrants that we get out at the fair each year and gets them entered and gets everyone into the system. I'd like to thank my co-coordinator, Rebecca, who's going to be helping us out this evening with the questions, our amazing Get Out the Vote team, fair staff, Vanessa, for getting us online tonight, Stephen, all of the viewers and folks that sent in questions. We got a record number of questions this year, so sorry if we can't get to all of them, but thank you. The Fair Board for all of its support, and of course, all of this year's candidates. The forum will work similar to years past. We're going to start with an opening round where all candidates will have the opportunity to give a 2-minute opening statement. And then we'll move into the questions that have been sent in by you, the viewers, Fair Family, and by the candidates themselves. For the rounds of questions, everyone will have 90 seconds to respond. The order of speaking was determined before we were able to get the streaming going. All of the candidates know the order, and we'll start with number 1 in the opening statement round, and we'll start with slot number 2 in the round after that so that everyone has an opportunity to go first. You will be voting for up to 6 candidates this year on the ballot. We're electing the people that get the top 4 amount of votes will get 3-year terms. The next 2 will get a 1-year term. The thing that you need to know is you can vote for more than 6 if you want to, but if you do it that way, read the instructions on the back of your ballot. Also, make sure to vote for the Jill Hyman Fund. There's more information about all of the candidates, including how to get in touch with them if you want to do follow-up questions in the candidate statements, and you can get all of that at the .net site, OregonCountryFair.net. There's a big link to all of the elections info at the top of the page. I have a few more announcements, but we're going to save those for later. So we'll kick things off with Katie Parker. We're going to have opening statements, and Katie, why don't you get us going?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Parker. I have worked on booth registration for a lot of years now. I also was a part of the database project team that was working to come up with a centralized database for the Oregon Country Fair. And I am interested in running for the board to help us move forward in this new land of technology that we experience, as well as bringing people together. There's a lot of things that we face that we are trying to solve, and there's a lot of voices to be listened to, and trying to filter through some of that seems to be one of the challenges that we struggle with. I have an HR background in the unfair world, so I have a lot of experience with listening to all of the stakeholders involved and trying to come up with a path forward that encompasses all of that good advice that you get from having a diverse team. And we have a lot of options available to us and a lot of experience available to us as a family. So we can use that to help propel us forward. And thank you much.
All right, AJ, you're up next. Oh, you're muted, AJ.
You're muted.
Everyone gets one of those.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys for being here. Thank everyone for being here. Right off the bat, getting used to the language of not using you guys. And so I will correct myself and say, hey, everyone. Thank you again for being here. My name is Anthony Jackson. I go by AJ. I have had the privilege of serving on the board of directors for the last 2 years, or going on 2 years. And for those who have been paying attention to what's going on, you would agree with me when I say that it's been a rough 2 years, I think. But I think we've made some significant progress. And I'm hoping tonight with your questions and other board candidate statements that we will address some of those things that we want to go forward with in the next year or two. I want to see us continue our transition into transforming our leadership into one that works and that is not just in conflict all the time. I want to see us actually start to build relationships, and I think there are some unique and awesome human beings on this platform today that will help us get there. I'm excited about running again because I think the work that I set out to do when I first ran 2 years ago is not complete. I want to acknowledge that I don't think a board a board person should be there for life. So this will be my last term that I'm running for. And I'm hoping to complete the work I set out to do. Thank you.
Hi. I'm just going to start. Hi,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Ann Bennett Rogers, and I think that everybody who's running, what we share is an abundance of passion for the Oregon Country Fair. My entire nuclear family participates in some aspect of the fair. My husband is coordinator. My sons, one's coordinator on construction, the other's on the traffic crew. We, as a family, we recognize that our roots come from the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, and the environmental movement. My career has been based in land management and conservation and environmental compliance. I'm familiar with all the federal, state, and local environmental regulations from mitigation to take permits to programmatic agreements that allow you to move forward in unique ways. One thing I would really like to see, and I've been asked by a number of people across all age classes, but especially by some of the elders, is to have some form of Fair Family News subscription so that they can get a hard copy. So they could have had a hard copy of the voters pamphlet. So when you have to read your Fair Family News and your voters pamphlet on something like this is really hard. And everyone I've talked to says, I would pay money. I would pay money to have this subscription, a small fee. And so I think this is something that, whether I'm elected to the board or not, is something that should really be looked into, and I will advocate for it. And I think that's basically it. And I hope my dog doesn't bark during this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lucy, you're up next.
Thank you, Brett. And thanks everyone for attending who's here, either on Zoom or in YouTube land. I also want to thank Leslie Scott for a series of exchanges that we had via email today that helped me sort of clarify why I'm running for the board and what my personal values are, which has to do with integrity, community building on all levels of the fair, from from the board to committees to task forces, that we need to be building community, and that needs to be the focus. And then transparency in actions as well as in words. I have participated in one way or another in every fair that's ever been. I've been a booth person, I've been an artisan, I've been a coordinator, I've been a crew member, and I'm familiar, and I am concerned about the direction that we are in the midst of. A very sort of, not only within the fair, but within the planet, is a very messy transition, and want to bring some stability and bridge building to that. And if you agree with that, I would appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
Next up is John Alexander.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks to the elections committee and the Get Out the Vote folks, and thanks to all the candidates and all the people that I've been talking to over the last couple of weeks. I've been learning a lot, listening a lot, and trying to hear all of the various perspectives on what's going on with the fair, in addition to what I've been paying attention to over the last couple of years. I'm calling from Ashland, Oregon, where I live with my wife. We first met in '89. That was probably the year we came to our first fair. We had moved out from the East Coast to Olympia, Washington. Just was back east visiting our fair family kids that grew up at the fair there in Boston and New York. So they decided to go back for some school. And we're a fair family. It's a family affair for us. And I want to give back. And that's why I'm running, because it's meant so much and been such a wonderful place for me and my family to come and convene with our broader family and friends. The fair depends on volunteers to lend their expertise. And when you go around the fair and see the amazing things that we see, so many people have so many different things that they bring to the table. And one of the things that I think I can bring is that I have a lot of nonprofit organization experience. I founded an organization called the Klamath Bird Observatory that's represented in Community Village each year. We do a fair family bird walk. If you haven't been on our virtual one yet, I encourage you to go. And I've served on several other nonprofit boards, including chairing a philanthropic foundation. One of the approaches I use in my work is to use science to find a common ground. We sometimes come across environmental challenges, and if we can get the people who are on opposing sides to observe things that they agree on, then we can find a common platform to move on to move forward from. And that's the kind of approach I think that we can bring to the fair. As a board member, we need to care for the budget, we need to support our staff and our volunteers, and we need to care for our land. And what I'm hoping to do is start by just listening and learning. I know I've got a lot to learn, and to get a board aligned behind our legal responsibilities for the fair's financial well-being and the care of our volunteers and staff.
Thanks. Kevin, you're up next.
Okay, hello, fair family. My name is Kevin Levy, and just want to first say definitely I'm grateful for everyone's time and effort. Candidates, election committees, Brett and Rebecca, for making this happen. A little about me. I've been participating as a crafter at fair since about 2014. I am currently co-chair on the Fixed Assets Committee. There we work collaboratively with many committee staff and outside contractors on advising the board on our many assets. On the committee, we help make recommendations for the many assets. In my unfair world, I am a full-time realtor, and I also serve on the Eugene Board of Realtors as a broker director. My experience working on another board has been invaluable in learning how to collaborate and work with others on both creating and reviewing policies. My time on the Fixed Assets Committee helped bring Doug's Green up as well to be operating space. Value I bring to the board is from working with my many clients early in my career and learning to remove myself from the equation. Anyone that works with me knows that I always stay positive. My work for the organization and all of its members and volunteers, observe an actionable board along with extensive member input. I would like to see, if elected, I can promise that I will be here to collaborate and work with everyone to keep our fair growing while taking the time to hear our members' input and lead with the many voices we have.
Arna, you're up next.
Well, hi, and thanks everyone for being here. You know, we really had a great fair this year. It was really wonderful to be able to get together again on the property, but we have some large issues that we need to be facing. After 2 pandemic years, we need to get back onto a solid financial footing again. We need to take a serious look at how we're going to manage our public and internal population. Our DEI work has a long way to go, and I don't believe our current course is working for us. This is important work, and I think we need to find an effective way forward. I believe I can help with these issues. I've had broad experience at the fair. I've been the general manager, an artisan with a booth. I've been on the board. I've served on committees. I've been a volunteer. I created the team crew, and I'm founder of the Joe Hyman Vision Fund. I'm running for the board because I want a collaborative board that can work together and find agreements that and that will model the behavior that we expect from everyone. You know, civil, courteous, and respectful discourse, even when disagreeing. I'm outspoken, and I will express my opinions, but I will listen to others and try and find common ground. We need a board that will act professionally and create policies that are equitable and ensure that they are evenly applied throughout the fair. So often division comes from people feeling that they are treated unfairly. Unfortunately, many of our members don't feel heard, so I want more membership input at our board meetings. The NAO report gave us some ideas for this, but we don't have to do them, but we can do better than what we're doing now. I also want fewer closed sessions. I think that they should only be for personal, legal, and real estate discussions. And I think that they're used now for sometimes talking about contentious issues that the board doesn't want to talk about in public, but I think that's inappropriate. You know, even though I've done a lot of things at the fair and I've been a leader out at the fair, above all, I'm a member just like you. And I hope you will consider me when you cast your vote. Thank you very much.
Thomas, you're up next.
Thanks, Brett. Hi. First, a big thank you to everyone who helped make this happen. I'm so impressed with everybody here. It's pretty incredible to be here, and I really appreciate it. My name's Thomas Horn, and my family's been attending the fair for many decades, and a large part of who I am as a person has been shaped and nourished by my involvement in the fair. I've experienced firsthand the magic, creativity, and artistry of the fair, and I've been an educator in Eugene for more than 2 decades. I've been an elementary principal, an alternative high school principal, and I have a pretty deep understanding of the importance of helping create healthy communities. I believe that our fair has work to do to become healthier. I do believe it takes practice and skill to engage in difficult conversations and to grow from the experience. In my experience, a strong leader, a board member, helps a community to develop and hone this skill. It's important to be able to lean into difficult conversations with goodwill, kindness, good intent. I do think it's important to have a sense of humor. It does make the world a better place. I believe for the fair and our planet, the single most significant moral, social, and economic challenge we all face as a society is figuring out how to design communities and economies that can provide a high quality of life without critically damaging the natural ecologies upon which our welfare depends. And I think it's also incredibly important to honor diversity in a way that allows each voice to be truly heard and acknowledged. This is true for the fair as well. I feel I'm capable of helping to bridge differences, and I have a track record as a principal of bringing people together. I don't take things personally. I'm able to listen deeply and build rapport. I think humility is incredibly important, and I desire to be somebody who can be helpful to the fair. I'm excited to really give back to the fair because it's given so much to me. Thanks so much.
Our next speaker is Ken Gibson.
Hello, everybody. I want to share in the gratitude already expressed by everybody for the people who put this on and for people who are attending. I certainly do share that. I agree with a lot of what's just been said. Part of what I said in my candidate statement was to the point, and that is I feel that the membership has been distanced from process and decision-making, well, basically since 2018 when the NAO kind of got rammed through by some members, some board members who were de-elected that year. And that distancing has been increased. Part of it, you know, for lack of a better word, is the pandemic. I mean, we went to Zoom meetings, for gosh sakes. I look at this board and I haven't seen you face to face, and I've met nobody here in the last 2 years face to face. That's kind of sad. The extension of the distancing of the membership extended then to time limits for the sake of speed and not getting clogged up with verbiage. Time limits were put on members to speak, and it was 2 minutes period, not on 2 minutes per topic or 2 minutes. It was 2 minutes period. That just chilled participation by the membership. The advisory questions, I can't remember when they were first introduced. We did not have one this year. They have never been dealt with, ever. There's no action been taken, no board discussion, other than at a board retreat once, which I don't think counts. The treatment of members and treatment of each other, you know, we've had a fundamental breakdown in that, and it serves to distance people as well. You talk about a chilling effect. If you get lambasted or your viewpoint is, you know, publicly shamed, that chills your willingness to participate. I think one of the fundamental things to change that is to get back to what we've already established in terms of the code of conduct. And as someone said before, equally apply it. You can look at.
You got to wrap up. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm wrapping up. Okay, and that's where I'm at. Is I want to reestablish membership connection to the process. Thank you, everybody.
Dave, you're up next.
Hello. Thank you for hosting this, Brett and Rebecca, for this forum and for this opportunity for us to share our ideas. Thank you to Fair Family for tuning in and for your engagement in this important process. My name is Dave Wagenheim, and I've been a part of the fair for 16 years, working as a food vendor and as a volunteer. I've been a small business owner in Eugene for the same amount of time. Many of the fair's values have influenced my business and my personal life positively over the years. Some of these include our commitment to the environment, sustainable growth, philanthropy, and volunteering. I've been a member of the food committee for a number of years and a guest chef at Culture Jam for almost 10. I'm running for a seat on the board because I believe I can contribute positively to the fair. This organization deserves a productive board that is not bogged down by divisiveness or distractions. If elected, I will be committed to working effectively with my peers on the board and educating myself in areas of less experience. I will work hard to maintain the sustainability of our event and our organization's philanthropic goals. As a board member, I will support the modernizing of our infrastructure to keep our visitors safe and comfortable, keep our event environmentally respectful and sustainable, and to ensure our hardworking volunteers are well fed and appreciated. I will support modernizing our registration processes and record keeping so that our vast institutional knowledge can be passed on easily to new volunteers. Lastly, I will support our executive director and the amazing staff that keep our foundation together when we all turn our focus back to our lives outside of the fair. This year's elections represent an opportunity for some fresh perspectives and energy on the board. I hope you are as excited as I am about that. If elected, I will work hard to continue to support the values of the fair and lend my skills where they can do the most good. Thank you for your consideration.
And John Steinhardt is our last opening statement.
Hi there, I'm John Steinhardt. I've been a volunteer for 3 decades along with my partner and raised my kid at the fair. I'm running for the board in order to focus on the health and sustainability of the organization. Part of this is improving transparency and communication so that we share a common vision as a community. COVID's been really hard on us individually, and it's been hard for the fair, both socially and financially. We're really fortunate for our treasurer's attention to the budget and the grants that our executive director obtained. It's easy to take for granted the benefits that flow from the fair, such as our philanthropy and ability to gather as a community. Our annual event is what makes this all possible. We need to become more resilient because, for example, we could have been in serious trouble had it rained for another week this spring. There are a lot of hard choices ahead. There's a big pent-up demand to fund projects, make philanthropic donations, and so on after our years off. Those need to be balanced with replenishing our rainy day fund, maintaining our existing property, and saving for the next event. Many want to cut down the size of the event, which made it nicer for us and may have actually improved the vendor experience this year, but that also reduces revenue and we have to grapple with that. We can't jeopardize our ability to put on our main event. As an intentional community, we're experiencing some challenges accommodating our younger generations. I support open discussion on our identity. We need to both meet our internal needs and remain attractive to the public. At the fair, I invented the way that we do much of crew staffing and registration while providing technical support to the largest crews at the fair. Outside of the fair, I'm an engineer, farmer, author, and educator. Facts matter to my engineer brain. Understanding problems is critical to solving them. Farming gives me a strong connection to the land and environment. My dedication to clear and transparent communication comes from engineering, writing, and educating. While these alone are not the complete set of skills needed on the board, they can complement the skills of other board members. The board sets the tone in any organization, including the large one the fair has become. The pandemic and political strife in the outside world has taken its toll on us as well. But I believe that we can move forward as a community civilly and with respect for each other. And most importantly, with joy in our hearts.
Okay, thank you, John. And thank you all candidates for the opening statements. I'm now going to turn things over to Rebecca, our co-coordinator for the Get Out the Vote team, to throw the questions your way. Take it away, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here and being willing to step up and lead this amazing event and organization that we all care so much about. I've got some questions for you that were submitted. First question I have is, one of the hurdles the board has faced over the last couple of years is that it feels like there are sides and that the board has become more divisive, which can of course make it hard to do the work the board needs to do to keep the organization moving forward. So what will you do to change this in order to collaborate and compromise and make the board more effective going forward? You have a minute and a half, and we're starting with who, Brett?
We're starting with AJ this round.
Okay.
That is a great question. I would answer that by acknowledging we do have a current divided board. I think there are many reasons for that divided board, but I think one of the big reasons comes from a transition in our staff and with our executive director. I believe we are in a situation where folks have had allegiances to certain people who are no longer there, and they are acting on those allegiances instead of acting on the in the best interest of the organization. And so I think it's caused a divided board. I think, unfortunately, I think our issues around DEI have gotten wrapped around those sort of things, and I think are causing more divisions as we speak. So how I would address that is kind of how I've been addressing it so far. It's been tough. And that is letting the membership know what's going on, everything that's going on, whether it happens behind closed doors, through emails or text, informing the membership so the membership is aware of the folks acting this way. I am here tonight running again, and I'm hoping that you would elect some of the fresh voices that we have here on this platform, because we need folks who think of the organization first, and we don't necessarily.
Okay.
Thank you, AJ. Anne, you are up next.
Thank you. On the division in the board, I feel that one of the major attitudes is there are people constantly looking in the rearview mirror. And if they're looking backwards in the rearview mirror, they're not going to see that tree. And that can be a really dangerous way to move forward. And because forward is the direction we want to go. I see a need to reach and to understand the concept of compromise. And one of the things to a former board member I said was, everybody's talking about me, and you have to turn that M over so it's about we, because that's where we need to go forward. And we need to recognize that sometimes, no matter who you are or how great you think whatever you're proposing is, it may not fit into our values, and it may have a real and harmful effect to other people as well as to our stewardship of the land. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Next, Lucy, your turn.
Thank you. It's a really interesting question and a really valuable question that faces our community. I can say that it's not that I have allegiance to any one person. What I have an allegiance to is community, and to making voices heard, and to genuinely act within the board in a collaborative and community building way. It's unfortunate, for example, that all the language about cooperation and collaboration was removed from the executive director's job description. I find this distressing. I believe that that sits at the heart of who we are as a community, that we engage in cooperative and collaborative efforts on all levels within the fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Next up, John Alexander.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And coming after Anne and Lucy, I just want to, looking forward, and we're a community and we're one. And I've been watching what's been going on, but I feel like I'm coming into this not steeped in the politics. But what I've been doing over the last several weeks is inviting people to call me and reaching out to people. And as soon as, it's been amazing how many people have called me and said, were you a part of this group or a part of that group? And I've gotten a lot of that. And so I've kind of dug into a little bit. And when I hear, well, these other people, those are the other people that I've been calling. And so what I really want to do is listen to everybody and learn, because I don't know, I'm not coming in with the answers, but my intention is to hear about the challenges. And as I mentioned before, find the things that we agree on them and use them as a platform for moving together, and to come and build a board that is united around norms in which we do business. And that's been mentioned earlier, so I won't go into that. What are the agreements that we make to do business to lead the dialogue in the direction we want it to go for our entire community? And I think taking a look at pieces of the NAO practices and the committee practices and committing to the ones of those that we like and applying them evenly and equally across the challenges this board faces, and remembering to keep the board in our lane and to do the work that we need to do in doing this job to lead the fair out of these challenging times. And so that's my intention to address that. And I'm excited about it because I've had a lot of really great conversations with folks.
Thank you, John. Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, so it's funny, I had a member ask me, if there was a decision that I felt strongly about on the board and it didn't go my way, how would I react? And I would say, and I told them, that's the game, right? Really, it's about finding that compromise, maybe finding a way where both parties can get something at least to kind of move forward, and understanding and communication about what folks are wanting to do and what that's looking like. I know working on the fixed assets committee, we had a lot of decisions to make, a lot of things that happened, a lot of recommendations I made that didn't go, and that's okay. Really, it's about, what is best for the fair. And that's, it's not an easy thing. We all love the fair. We all are here, and being able to really separate ourselves from that, because even being as a member of the fair, as a crafter, I have to recognize that during my time on the board, if elected, we might run into something that could affect the way, my business runs and things like that. But I still have to stop and say, well, is this the best for the fair? And we have to think about the future and the upcoming generations and what is best for them and looking forward, as well as, being decisive and just staying positive, and really we're all in this together, and all the members deserve to see us working together, and they will feel better and to create that environment. So really it's just about working with each other better. Yes.
Thanks, Kevin. Arna?
Well, board members must put what's best for the organization above everything else. Our personal wants or dislikes or anything. It's what's best for the organization. And so you have to separate out your personal wishes from that. Because sometimes what's best for the organization is maybe not what personally you want as a board member. And I think that having all these new candidates and new faces who aren't on the board now, or in AJ's case, who is on the board now, will also be really helpful in maybe bridging some of these divides. I don't see myself as on one faction or another. I would like to just be an independent board member who can work with everybody. And would like to do that. I like to listen and, as I say, I have opinions on things, but I'm willing to compromise as long as it doesn't, totally change what, my values are. And my values are pretty much the fair's values. So I think that, as long as we're all willing to compromise and work for what's best for the fair, that we can get out of these divisive times that we're in right now.
Thanks, Arna. Thomas, you're up.
Thank you. Well, I think what people have said is really right on. I do think having awareness as a board member is important. Having an awareness of how you affect others with what you say and what you do and how you are is needed and important. As somebody who works as a principal, I have to do that in my role, and now I'm at a district office job where I have a lot of responsibilities and interact with a lot of people, and I think it's important to not take things personally, to be humble, and to really replace judgment with a wonder. I think it's important to be inquisitive, to ask questions. I think absolutely understanding the goals of what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's large scale or small scale, are important. Those are including personal goals for ourselves as board members or organizational goals. Understanding the weak spots of an organization like the Country Fair is important. And how do you recognize how to work together to accomplish specific tasks over time, looking at a scope and a sequence and moving forward with not backward in terms of what you're focused on trying to accomplish. So I think it's just important to do all of that with awareness and humility.
Thanks, Thomas. You're next, Ken.
Thank you. I don't see this as a good question or an important question. Unfortunately, I see it as a very much required question. The disharmony on the board has grown proportionally over the last 3 or 4 years. I think the stresses of the pandemic have even added to that. I think the baseline of human behavior, how we treat each other, is being ignored. And I think the return to that baseline is the best way to heal what has gone on and to set ourselves forward. Thanks.
Hi. Yeah, I love what everybody said so far. It's been really resonated with my views. The short of it is I don't think sides benefit the fair. And I think that's what we need to hold most important. How does our work benefit the fair and our organization? It's a challenge, I think, a human challenge to kind of separate our personal ideologies and identities from decision making, especially with others. Sometimes things can bump up against what we perceive as other people's views, and they can be challenging to ours. So, it's a human challenge for sure, getting along and making decisions together. But I believe we need to maintain a commitment to that when it comes to our work on the board. And I think that also carrying that on and how we communicate outside is very important, particularly on social media, where things can turn ugly very fast and get divisive. And, as John said, talking to people, as in this process, when people get you on the phone and you actually have that human connection, that's a really good way to kind of get through some of these obstacles that we find ourselves in that bring conflict. This is a big thing, and one of the main reasons why I threw my hat in the ring, because I think I can work positively in this realm with others. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. John Steinhardt, you're next.
Hi. So to answer the question directly, I don't know if I can make the board more collaborative and effective. I'd like to, but I agree with much of what AJ said. I've watched a lot of board meetings, and there seems to be a chunk of our board right now that is not focused on what's best for the organization and instead is focusing on personal allegiances. I'm running to focus on what's best for the organization. One of the things that I think is an issue on the board is that we made a transition a few years ago with the NAO to be a policy board, but too many times I'm seeing our board not making policy and instead meddling in operations, and I think we need to stop that. We haven't even adopted a policy on diversity yet, as far as I can tell, and it's been 14 years since that came up in a Vision Quest goal. I think communication is key. I've taken a lot of Zach's crisis trainings, and I've had people call me up recently and said, this thing you said made me angry, and we talked for a few minutes and realized that it was because we weren't coming from the same source of information. And once we had the same starting point, turned out we agreed. One of the things I'd really been thinking about, I talked to Dave about this a couple of weeks ago, is whether it would be good to have an executive director's or maybe a board president's blog so that people had some place to go to get good information in a timely fashion instead of getting it from Facebook. But, anyway, I believe communication is the answer to that, but I can't guarantee you I can make everybody do that. Thanks.
Thanks, John. And finally, we have Katie Parker.
Hey, a lot of things came to my mind when this question came up. The first is that none of us can go back in time. So looking back at what has been doesn't help us collaborate too much going forward. One of the areas where divisions continue to be generated is that people look to protect what they have or protect themselves in some way. Leadership is service. It's about letting go of yourself and making sure that you're looking at what the team or the organization needs to get things done, the things that need to be done. This takes listening to all of those needs and seeking out those voices that aren't speaking up for themselves. The quietest ones, those are the ones that know so much more about what's going on quite often than the louder ones do. So building that team is about the now and the bridge that we need to build to go into the future. So we need to look for our common ground, figure out what we have to build on, stay focused on what needs to be solved for the organization instead of all of the emotions at play. What does the organization actually need to do and solve moving forward? And part of that means is that we do need to elaborate on the why behind those controversial decisions. We don't do a good job as an organization of getting those facts out, as John and Dave were talking about, getting that information out so people can see it. So those are the things we need to be working on.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, I didn't miss anyone, correct? Nope, I think we're good. Okay, next question. How would you, and I will get this into the chat in just a second. How would you like to see the fair handle COVID-19 policies going forward? For example, mandatory vaccines for staff, size of the event, on-site testing, or any other examples of COVID-19 policies? And we're going to start this time with Anne.
Wow. So a public health crisis reflects the public health issues in our country, not just at the fair, And for those of us of a certain age, we remember public health providing polio vaccines at our school, which was a very contagious disease. So as far as COVID, and I feel very lucky that I have not had it, but I've been very cautious. I was very cautious during fair this year. I know that we had a lot of people who didn't attend fair because of the vaccination requirements. I personally think that we should focus on what our public health officials are saying. And in addition, personal choice in terms of wearing a mask or not. I went to a show at Daredevil. I think I was the only person wearing a mask. And I noticed people saying, oh, this place is saved, you can't sit here. And they were trying to preserve space around themselves that way. I think we do need to have some sort of vaccination requirement at the moment, but again, I'm not a public health official, and that's all I can say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Lucy, you're next.
Thank you. I think this is a really relevant question. Many people got sick with COVID. It was a super spreader event. I personally was fortunate to not get sick, but I took a lot of effort and a lot of energy to do that. And I think we need to abide by what is prudent in order to maintain community health and well-being with vaccinations and with the wearing of masks.
Thanks, Lucy. John Alexander, you're next.
Great, thanks. This is a hard question too. We didn't make it to the fair this year because we got COVID the week beforehand at a fair family wedding. What we're doing at our office is CDC Plus. I got to go to the experts when it goes to them, but I'm always very questioning of my doctors. You know, they don't call it practice for nothing. And so I don't just go to the doctor and listen to what they say and what they do. I ask them a lot of questions, and sometimes I ask them to take extra precautions. Sometimes I, really kind of push that thing. But I think CDC Plus, the CDC said that we could have come to the fair. At our office, we say if the CDC says, well, you're out, but you should wear a mask, we're just like, don't come to the office. And so we didn't want, right now the CDC is kind of balancing some economic needs around opening up and things like that too. So I think it's really about watching what CDC says regularly. We can't make a decision now about what things are going to be looking like next year at the fair. I think y'all did a good job in making some really hard decisions based on what the CDC was saying. I know it was not popular. I know I have lots of dear friends that didn't make it to the fair because of the COVID vaccination requirement. So I think I would stick with the science and watch and see how things are going and not necessarily make a commitment to doing one thing or another right now, but certainly come down with a commitment when you get 6 months, 3 months out so we can figure it out. Certainly testing at the fair would be a cool thing to have.
Thanks, John. Kevin, you're
up. Yeah, definitely a good question. I would say, like many folks are saying, really leading with CDC, public officials, things like that. For me, I would say really we should just lean forward towards what will allow us to have the event. If there's restrictions for us to have the event requiring certain things, something like that, then I think we should definitely follow those first and foremost. It's one of those kind of we don't have a choice things. It's like if we want the event and CDC wants us to all have masks or less population, then we got to do what we got to do, in the end. And I believe this thing will, go away as far as, we will, all be vaccinated. Hopefully it'll go away. Maybe not, but, maybe it'll just get knocked down to where it's not as major a thing by come next year. But that is my thoughts. I really, it is such a hard thing, and it's so sad for all the folks that couldn't make it. I know when I was there, plenty of people with masks, plenty of people without. It's a no judgment zone already. If you have major health issues, then, definitely don't come. We love you still. We'll see you the next time, and so That's what I think really just what we should leave with whatever will keep the event going and allow us to be there.
Thanks, Kevin. Arna, you can take it.
Well, I agree with some of what's been said before by Kevin and John. I think we have to follow the science on this, and it's way too early to figure out what we're going to be doing for next year's event, because who knows what COVID will be doing next year. We'll have to decide this as we get closer to it. You know, we can't wait till the last minute because booths and staff, they need decisions earlier. But hopefully we can make a decision for next year, maybe, 4, 5, 6 months in advance. But we need to follow the science. We need to see what the CDC says and, look at that and, interpret that to our event. Hopefully COVID will be just endemic at that point. There will be no more pandemic part of it. But we do have a multi-generational event, and we have a lot of elders at our event and a lot of children at our event. And we have to look at how it will affect everybody. I just don't think we need to be making decisions now, other than I know there's a measure coming up at the next board meeting about dropping the mandate for right now for people who are outside. I don't know what the board will end up doing with that, and how comfortable everybody will feel with that, dropping the vaccine mandate right now. I think people who are uncomfortable will be wearing masks and they'll have to be staying outside. But we'll see what the board does with it. I'm not sure, honestly, I'm not sure how I would vote on that right now. Probably for outside stuff, I would feel comfortable with that. And, having people who have more health issues, they would be wearing masks for it.
Thanks.
At a certain point, we have to give up and go along with what everybody else in the country is doing.
Thank you, Arna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thomas, you're next.
Thank you. Well, I think people have said what I feel as well, which is it is important to follow science, and as John mentioned, go to the experts. And I think it's also important to get, I've had to do this as a school administrator, get information out to people about the policies as quickly as possible. And those policies for us in education, and I think at the fair too, can change pretty quickly based on what's happening with the metrics and what's going on with COVID in general. It's had a ebb and flow. I think it's important to allow people to express their thoughts. In my current work, I've had people on all kinds of thoughts, and I think allowing that space and time for people to express how they feel is important, especially as a board member who's a public figure. And then I think it's important to continue to have open and honest dialogue with people who have information, the people in our community who are on the front lines of a medical understanding of what's going on, to make decisions. Thanks.
Thanks, Thomas. Ken, you're up.
Thank you. I think, I think it was John that said CDC plus. I like that. In terms of what happened last year, I was not able to attend, but that was because it wasn't a political decision. I had surgery on 2 weeks prior to fair. And so even though I got out to do some volunteer stuff, I did a couple of shifts just to help people out. I wasn't at the fair for my usual gig. I thought the fair did pretty well in terms of navigating the situation as we had it then in July. I know some people had real issues with that. I'm an elder, and I know a lot of the elders were very concerned about catching that, rightfully so. And yet some of the response to those people, as others deciding not to attend, was pretty vindictive, and some of the back response to that was like, how dare you legislate? That's that getting ugly thing. And people shouldn't be treated that way. So to sum it up, I think the fair as an entity did very well last year, given the terrain they were traversing. Next year, I think that CDC plus idea was pretty intriguing. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Dave, your turn.
Yeah. So being on the food committee last year, we had a lot of challenges because there's a lot that goes into a food booth's decision making on whether they can attend with all these restrictions and the changing dynamic of COVID and the government mandates. It made it really difficult. And then not to mention the mandate itself excluded a lot of people or made people very nervous about the ability to get enough crew to do this event. And also, will there be anybody that attends the fair? So under, all things considered, I think we did the best we could last year. I do think that we need to adapt our rules to reflect current social norms and current science, and also maybe allow the pendulum to swing a little bit back from protect everybody at all costs to let people take personal responsibility for their health. Whether that's wearing masks, not attending the event because they think it's too dangerous, or maintaining social distance. That we can do a lot more education also to make that to help people make that decision. Testing was mentioned. I don't think mandatory testing should be happening, but voluntary testing would be great. Maybe we could have little buttons, to help people identify people who have been tested. So it's a big complicated thing. Thanks for everybody.
Thanks, John Steinhardt, you're next.
Yeah, COVID had a pretty big impact on me for somebody that didn't catch it, because it was the first time at the fair I was ever there without my family. And they made me quarantine for a week after I got home. I think we did a pretty good job this year, considering that we had to balance protecting our health and putting on the event to maintain our permit. Just like some other people have said, I'm a science guy, but actually here's my chance to be a bad politician and change the question. I don't really think we should be asking about COVID. We should be asking about future health issues, because we're going to have another one and it's not going to be COVID, and we need to plan for those. Again, I think we did a good job this year. The biggest issue I have with a lot of things I've seen other people say is that, to me, a good part of the fair's community is having empathy for others. And we have a lot of marginalized people at the fair for medical issues. And it doesn't work to just say, well, you can protect yourself if you want. I'm not going to wear a mask, or I'm not going to get vaccinated. That's a tough balance for us. The question also asked about the size of the event. I think that's a completely independent issue. We'll have to deal with that when we see what's happening at the time. That's about it.
Thank you, John. Katie?
Yes, thank you. I don't know if there's a great answer for this. I think most of us have struggled to come up with the perfect idea of how to answer it. There's so many things to be considered, but COVID is changing and it's going to keep changing. And there are going to be other things that come forward in the future. And we're always going to have to adapt to those. So it's hard to have a singular answer of how you would deal with this right now when you're looking at an event that's 10 months away. This is one of those areas where sometimes what's best for the fair may not be what people want. So there's going to have to be a way to find that balance between the two things. The real answer for this is going to have to be something the board puts together in the future. But following the science needs to be part of that, and following what the community wants and what the community feels like they need is going to have to be a part of that. And we also need to put notice out about that as much as we possibly can ahead of it, so that people can make those plans and make those adjustments and be able to adapt to whatever it is that's going to be available or working out there, because there's so many things that need to be put in motion quite a bit ahead of time. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. And finally, we have AJ on this question.
Oh, so it's a big question. I agree with much that has been said already. I would add that I think as a board, we were in a difficult position this year. What I found and what I participated in is a twofold. The idea that I truly believe that in personal responsibility, and that people should be able to make their own health decisions based on their own information. I also believe as board members, we have to, and I believe we tried in the best way we knew how, to make a decision on what was best for the organization. How could we come back and hold an event that we needed to have this year, and make it safe and take in all the information we could, knowing that our membership was divided almost right down the middle on this issue. And so I think, this is one of the, our decision on COVID was one of the decisions I think we were mostly united on, because it was forever changing and we were all trying to get the best information and do the best we can. I think everybody made a good effort on that, whether we agreed or not. I believe COVID was one of those things that was changing. It changed from week to week to month to month. And so we had to make decisions based on that changing information, even right up until the event. I think now that we know this sort of thing can happen, I think better planning and getting ahead of it is the right way to go.
Thank you, AJ. Great, everybody. We have more questions, but really quick, Brett's going to make a couple announcements.
To make just a couple announcements for people at home. Hopefully all of you have gotten your ballots by now. Ballots have been mailed. Voter pamphlets were not mailed this year to help cut down on costs and postage costs and to save paper, but they are available on the OregonCountryFair.net site. So please go there to learn more about candidates. If you haven't received your ballot, please contact elections@OregonCountryFair.org to confirm that they have your correct information. Saturday, October 15th is the annual membership meeting. It's at the Lane Community College Longhouse in Eugene. The agenda includes a State of the Peach, the Treasurer's Report, and board candidate statements. Saturday, October 22nd is the date that all of the ballots are due to the fair office by 8 p.m. That's the office at 442 Lawrence Street. And last but not least, on Sunday, October 23rd, that's when we're going to find out the winners, and that information will be posted on the .net site as well. All righty, thanks, Rebecca. I'm going to turn it back over to you for our next question.
Thanks, Brett. Our next question, and Lucy, you're going to start us off this time, and we will carry on with the same order, is what is your vision of a diverse and inclusive fair, and how will you work to support these principles of diversity and inclusion? And you can start us off, Lucy.
Thank you. And this is unfortunately the last question I'm going to be able to answer, because I have a family religious service I need to actually lead. I think two things occur to me. One is to increase the diversity in terms of the entertainment that's offered. And second of all, to make more of an effort to engage our community, our various community partners, particularly the partners that we're involved with Culture Jam, of which I have been on the staff for, which I think very nicely represents the way I would like the fair community to be more closely aligned with, so that it's genuinely a multi-generational, multicultural event that supports community creativity. And I'm really sorry that I have to leave, but I do have a family obligation. So thank you all, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, Lucy. You as well.
Be well, Lucy.
John Alexander, you will be taking this question next.
Great, thank you. I think that one of the things we need to do is we need to move forward and heal the challenges that we've had as a board talking about diversity and working with our diversity committee. And I think we need to start by just thinking about committees in general and board norms in general, and how we work together to enable and to empower committees to inform the board to make good decisions and to make good policies. I think we can do that. I know it's going to be hard, but I think we've got to get there. And I think first it's about how do we operate as a board? It's not about one committee, it's about all committees. And how do we apply our norms across committees? In my work with the fair, I've been really proud. I run an international internship program, and every year I bring international students. I've brought students from all over the world to the country fair every single year. They have an amazing experience. Some of it is way out of their world. And they felt really pretty safe and good at the fair. I know there's people that don't. I think we need to listen and learn. I understand that we're backed up a little bit on grievances. I think we need to figure out how to resolve equitably and consistently the grievances that are out there. And I think we really need to learn the stories from the people who aren't feeling included and aren't feeling that we're meeting up to the values that we put forward as the fair. And it's about listening to other people and figuring out how to do that. It's not going to be easy, but we got to fix the challenge in front of us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Kevin, your turn.
Yeah, I like what John was talking about as far as kind of like an international internship program. I think there should be just a larger platform for inclusivity. I'd like to see more outreach in the community and in the public, cultural festivals, things like that. I'd like to see a booth, representing the country fair at each of these festivals to inform people more, so that they can say, well, what's the Oregon Country Fair? You should come check it out. Here's what we do. Here's what that looks like. Really, if, I know we're kind of a little bit secretive, but not too much, but, really, if we were out in the community more, just more present in cultural events and in front of people, then I feel like that would be something that would bring some more inclusivity, some more diversity to the fair. We're definitely in need of it, and so that's something that I would definitely champion and want to see more of, as far as really just being more present in the community, everywhere in front of these folks and giving them a voice, having them come on and talk to us, and really trying to invite as many as we can and creating a space for that.
Thanks, Kevin. Arna?
Well, I agree with both what John and Kevin have said. I think that, one of the things we need to do is the board needs to be more collaborative and be able to work together, because there's been such divisions on the board about how to work on DEI issues. I think all of our policies need to be looked at through a DEI lens so that we make sure we're making the appropriate policies. And I agree with Kevin that, we really need to be doing more outreach to the community. But I think that John was very correct in terms of part of this is that the board is not dealing with its committees properly. We don't supervise, the board wasn't supervising them. And I'm not just talking about the diversity committee. I think the board has problems, isn't supervising all of its committees properly, and needs to just look at that. Otherwise, it's across the board. They need to look at the missions for all the committees and see if they're working properly with that. I'd also like the fair to be doing more outreach into the larger community about DEI issues, that this is important for us to reach out. We shouldn't always be inward facing. I know the question is about how we would do this stuff within the fair, but we shouldn't always be so inward facing. We need to be more outward facing too. That's important for us. And it's all, communication is really important, and our communication about this hasn't been good. We need to make everyone who wants to come to the fair feel included. And that's not an easy thing to do. We're pretty insular.
Thank you. Thank you. Always a lot to say on these topics. Thank you very much. Thomas, you're up.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, much of what people have said, I agree with completely. But I think it's important to actually teach, and I mentioned this earlier, but teach self-awareness, to grow in awareness. There's a lot of things that have happened in the world and in society that the fair is not immune to. There's been some egregious things that have occurred, and we're wrestling with these things in schools as well. And it's important to acknowledge that different people's experiences are different in the world, and that's true at the fair too. I think in that kind of a model of becoming vulnerable and talking about topics, it's important to not target people and become defensive. It's important to have as much self-awareness as possible. I believe it's important to act as an ally and speak for voices who may not be at the table or heard. I think sharing experiences and being humble. And I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think replacing judgment with wonder and supporting each other in difficult conversations, and to be inquisitive and always ask questions. That's something that's going to be really important in terms of moving forward and being and living in a space where there is increasing diversity of voices. It's incredibly important. So it's a good question.
Thanks, Thomas. Ken?
Thank you. This one is a tough question. And if I had the answer to this, anyway, how would I work is kind of simpler, and that is just fundamentally recognizing that I'm dealing with humans, that I am a human. We have feelings, we have ideas. I don't disrespect you, you don't disrespect me. If we disagree, agree to disagree. My vision of a fair is kind of what it is. And that is something that's very alive, very dynamic and fluid. And when I've seen inequity at the fair that's not dealt with, usually, primarily it has been, but if it's not dealt with, it's kind of a sore to me. And I talk to people about it. Hey, I was thinking this about that. And I think that one of the weaknesses that comes up in those conversations is there's no follow through. There's no downstreaming of information. I don't know how the concern was addressed or if it was sometimes. Earlier, Lucy said this was a super spreader event. We didn't have a testing element at the fair. That would have been good information to have this year, I think. Things like that. So I would be willing to work with someone just by listening and respecting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Dave, it's your turn.
Hi, one thing I'd like to draw attention to is how special the fair is to everybody and how we have all been drawn to this event. And I don't think we've been drawn to this event because of how it necessarily alienates people of color or people with alternative identities and lifestyles. I think we are drawn to this event because there is a big part of it that nurtures diversity. That doesn't mean our work is done. We could always have work to do, more listening, more investigating, finding out where we're getting things wrong, and where our own institutional and ingrained biases might be taking place, especially in power dynamics. But yeah, it's a complex issue. Personally, I would like to do a little work to understand where we've been on this topic and where we are willing to go together, especially with up to a half of the board being refreshed. It's definitely something that a lot of people want to be focusing on. But I think it's more complicated than just checking boxes relative to identities or skin colors, stuff like that. Humans are complex. We all have very interesting backgrounds that have drawn us here. And so we need to honor that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. John Steinhardt, you're next.
Just want to start by saying I have a similar experience to John Alexander in that I've brought all of my exchange students to the fair and kind of ruined them because they're out in the world looking for festivals similar to it and can't find them. So diversity is really important to me. The big problem I have answering this question is I don't have any good information on what's actually happening at the fair. I have a lot of anecdotes. I've asked lots of questions and people say, oh, this happened, that happened. I asked somebody else, like, no, it didn't. So as I said in my opening statement, I can't solve problems if I don't know what they are. So I need more information and would try to get that if I'm elected. Also, I don't think my vision matters here. What matters is the collective vision. And we had that in 2008 with the Vision Quest that said diversity was an important goal for us. And it said that our target demographic was the demographics of Lane County, and that we should go conduct surveys of our membership and our public to see how we stack up. It's been 14 years and we haven't done that yet. And I think it would be good to get off our butts and do it. Again, we don't want to make weird policies because we have no real basis for them. So I want to start by getting information and follow the collective vision. I think we all want diversity and equity and inclusion, and we need to start with information.
Thank you, John. Katie, you're up next.
Thank you. One of the things I want to just acknowledge real quick here is that the fair is run by the people that have the time to do it, not always the people that are the most qualified. Using your PTO to come and do the fair is a choice, not a sacrifice. And some people just don't have that option. We're going to have to seek out the diversity that we say we want to include. And it's not as simple as it sounds. And it's going to actually end up being painful for some people, especially when including marginalized people need to come at the cost of other things like space or processes that some people within the fair feel entitled to. So we need to make sure that we have a safe space and that when people are harmed, there's actually some follow through in addressing it. Another thing that people don't think about is we need to be real about the unseen costs involved in being a booth or an artisan or a food booth that marginalized people may just not be able to afford. Aside from booth fees and camping, there's a bunch of construction and storage and travel and other costs. We may need to set up ways to facilitate bridging some of those costs for marginalized people in order to bring in that diversity that we're looking for. Creating the opportunity to volunteer and be part of the fair just isn't going to cover all of it. We do need to bring in other entertainment and reasons why people would want to come to our event and spend more time listening than we do talking, and then check in with people and step up to help solve things when we find out that something isn't right.
Thank you, Katie. AJ, you can take it.
I feel like doing a disrespect to this question by only having a minute and a half, but I will do my best. I will say, first of all, marginalized people are not looking for a handout. As a whole, I mean, I want to get that question. It's not like I think we've far too long in this country equated, marginalized people wanting something from us or needing a hand up when the actual question is, can we have access? Is there access? Not, do you need to give me, you need to give me something for free. So I want to address that first. Second, I agree with a lot of what Tom said, but I also want to acknowledge that this is a very tough question. And I think this organization made a really big mistake by creating a committee or a task force to solely deal with this issue. This should be an organization-wide issue. There should be DEI focus in every committee, on our board, with our staff, so that no singular group of folks can have the power to decide where the organization goes based on their research. This is a big and broad issue. It needs to be the focus of the whole organization. And it is my intention, should I be reelected, to make it a focus of the whole organization and not have it be led by individuals.
Thank you, AJ. Anne, you're last on this question.
As I said in my opening statement, one of our foundations lies within the civil rights movement. My personal involvement comes from early training in living in South America and liberation theology, which falls under social justice work. And we need to continue to understand the patterns that involve the disempowering and dehumanizing of individuals. What is trivial to the majority may be essential to someone else. And we need to understand these things, and we need to respect the different perspective. And in some ways, I feel like the fair is looking for loopholes that will allow it to continue on its current path. We've had a program with hip hop music in it, which is very well liked by a variety of people and addresses some of our diversity issues. As a member of the diversity committee, one of our major problems was the changing of the Black Lives Matter statement after we were asked to write it because the board would not address it. And they changed the word we wrote George Floyd was murdered and the board changed it. And that difference in level of the dominant group to interpret the patterns of everyday oppression we're not doing a good job. Thank you. And
Thank you.
everybody, oops, never mind.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, great. I think we got everybody on that question. Okay, next question I have for you is, what aspects of the environmental impact of the fair on the land we steward and the surrounding environment do you feel are of immediate concern, and how will you address these concerns? And John Alexander, you're starting us off.
Thank you. I was scared to start off on a question, and now there's one that's right in my field. Well, certainly, I'm super proud. One of the things I'd love us to look at is, I know Aaron Holmes has been doing bird surveys out there, and we use birds as indicators of ecological conditions. I'd love to work with Aaron and take a look at what we're learning about. I think there were some great decisions made about water use this year that were really progressive, and I really appreciated that. I understand that there's concern about a non-native infection that could affect the canopy of our trees and other things like that. I think we need to address that. But I really also think that our committees and our operational committees like path planning and archaeology, all of the different things that come under the stewardship booth and are kind of collected together to share information there, have the expertise and the information to make sure that we address the environmental issues right. Kind of go back to something that John Steinhardt said. If I don't know the problem, I'm not sure quite how to fix it. So I'm not clear about what is the biggest problem that we have there, as opposed to, versus just allowing the natural environment of that wonderful, one of the only old growth bottomland hardwood forests with a functioning river bottom in it, allowing it to do its thing and live around it, as opposed to try to force it to live within our confines. So that's a tough question because I'm not quite sure what the problems are, but I know we got a lot of committees out there that are working on this. So I'll listen to them and listen to what they have to say about that.
Thank you, John. Kevin, you're next.
Yeah, I agree with John. We've got some very serious, amazing experts out there that I would definitely lead with. I know working with fixed assets, we worked on the winery property and we worked with a recycling crew on doing the composting. And so how they're creating a compost facility over there. And I think that, that's a definite, issue that, is something we can continue to solve as far as, going with all composting and being a zero trash event kind of thing. I know that we definitely have some issues with erosion. I know one of the upper loops was closed because of that. So I think that's a definite issue that, to be solved and kind of figure out stopping that in the best way, along with, keeping in consideration and, the archaeology and those folks. And so really, I think we're, do a good job as well. Population, it's a bigger, uglier conversation, but I think it's something we have to really look at as far as wear and tear on the land. Even if we want to get creative to have more events, things like that, to fundraising, we have to really be careful of that. So I think that's something we should look further into as well.
Thanks, Kevin. Arna, it's your turn.
Well, I'll be honest, this is, environmental stuff and land impact, that's not my area of expertise. And I too would have to be listening to the experts in this area and up my knowledge of this. I know the LUM committee and path planning have done a lot of work on this. And the LUM committee has a lot of information and experts that I would really need to learn a lot from. But I think a lot of these issues will also be operational issues and not board issues. And I think we have to be careful to not step on operations toes on these issues. So that's something we would also have to look at. But so I can't really say, what are the immediate concerns here and how would I address them? I have a steep learning curve and I'm just going to be honest about that. So I can't really address this other than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Arna. Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at this, I think it's really super important to understand the interplay between environmental integrity, social justice, and economic development, and really understand how to help educate the public about the overall impact they have at the fair. There's a document called Our Boldest Step, which is an older fair document that hints at the fair's commitment to even deepening their understanding of their carbon footprint. I think the way I view the fair site, it's, I view it in these 5 ways: agriculture, architecture, energy, forestry, and water. I view it's sustainability in that way, because there's all of those things going on at the fair. And really engaging in projects that are in these different domains is important. Zero waste durables, alternative transportation, biofuels, peach power, alternative energy. Those things are incredibly important, and really partnering with watershed councils, which I know we do, and other folks that are doing environmental work, I think is really important to understand the metrics and the impact that we have. And I know we've done some of that work, and I think we could continue to do that work and create a continued scope and sequence for outcomes that we want to see.
Thank you, Thomas. Ken, your turn.
Thank you. Immediate concern. What would I do immediate? One is, it's going to kind of define me. I think it's long past the time that fireworks do not happen at the fair. Many, many times I've walked through that field post-party and picked up crap. And the person who got me doing that is still doing it. He's out there every year. You'll see him with a bucket. I've had the pleasure, actually the privilege of floating the fair when it floods several times. Garbage is everywhere, and it's hard to watch. I mean, as I'm paddling through a very idyllic scene with water bottles and junk and clothes and stuff caught up in the trees and the bushes, that would be an issue. And I know Amy and recycling crew fight it every year, but that is something that needs to be dealt with. And then the last, it would be the population. And one of the things that I'm doing research on right now is I heard about it happening in Hawaii. There's an indigenous movement happening in Hawaii where they're trying to reclaim some of the treasures of the island, in terms of they're getting so impacted by tourists that they themselves, the residents, cannot enjoy them or see them, or they're getting damaged. So they're actually working on how to limit that population. Those are the ways I think we need to go and explore what we can do. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. Dave, your turn.
Yes, this is a great topic, and one that I've been thinking about a lot since my involvement with the food committee. For instance, how we deal with our waste is a big deal to me, and whether it's our wastewater or our recycling, our single-use wares that relate to food consumption. These are big things that we think about a lot on the food committee. And one thing in particular that I've been looking at and kind of more aware of is wastewater. And there's an amazing kind of stat that, like, most of the food booths at the fair put their wastewater right into the ground. I don't think that's very environmentally sensible or conscious. And I would like to look at how to improve that. And it might be a difficult problem to solve, but that's an example of something that I think we could probably tackle in some years. And I would like to also continue to support our revolutionary recycling teams. They are essential to keeping in line with our environmental stewardship. And so basically, whatever they want to have to do their job more effectively, I support. And I think we can definitely look into alternatives and improvements in how we utilize single-use wares. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. John Steinhardt, you're up.
Hi. So I'm not an expert on the ecosystem at the fair. It's pretty different than the one I steward that's 100 miles away. So I would have to listen to people about that. But the real issue I have is we can improve on things like recycling and durables, and those are all incremental improvements. But really, the biggest impact on the environment is our growth. We seem to be finally slowing down of a period of uncontrolled growth. The fair is 6 to 7 times bigger in terms of staff than when I started. And just like the outside world, we just can't go overrun every border and cram more people in and claim we're environmental. So I'm certainly not in favor of anybody losing their spot at the fair because we might need to downsize, but I think using attrition, we might need to do that over time. I have a personal interest in demonstration farming on the fair site, but it can't be done because there's not a single inch of usable land that doesn't get a car parked on it sometime during the summer. So really, I think we need to look at our growth issues more than anything else. People want less of the public, but our event is for the public and they pay a good chunk of our bills. I don't think excluding them is the right thing to do. So we have to get ourselves under control. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Katie?
Thank you. One of the things that comes to mind for me first is that our crews have more of an impact over the 6 or so weeks of main camp than any other group that we put out there. The recycling crew does more pickup from campsites than they do from the event areas themselves, because most of that event area stuff is processed so much more efficiently. We have an amazing and awesome recycling crew. They do a lot of education both pre-event and during the event, and they really need our support. They're one of the most effective tools we have to address some of this. They've been promised support for their compost project for years, and they continue to have the can kicked down the road on that. I really want to see their slab built and the other resources they need to engage in that composting project. Our durables crew was promised an updated capacity and better machine, and that didn't happen this year. That really caused a major wrinkle for a bunch of things this year. We need to make that a priority. And then we have a lot of crews that offer great resources on all of this. Our veg medic and tree crews do amazing work. We need to include them in all of the things that impact and to learn what we need to do for our site and how to best support it. There's other places that we can get great information, the solar project and energy park, path planning. All of these groups include people that have been working on this for years, and to ignore their voices would be very short-sighted. So those are the places we need to be looking to get the information we need.
Thank you, Katie. AJ?
Yes, so I am a proud member of the Fixed Assets Committee, working with Kevin and a bunch of folks who will just show up every time to have these discussions. We have a variety of folks with different backgrounds, all really looking at how we actually steward our land with a lens that is really diverse. And so I would add a lot with other folks have said, but I want to acknowledge that, in the opening of our meetings and stuff, we have this thing that we say, about shepherding the land that we use. And I'd like us to go further in defining that. I think just as we do with diversity, equity, inclusion, it can't just be a catchphrase. It can't just be something that we say we do. We have to really invest in it and actually have actionable items that we do to back up what we say. And so this is an area I think the fair is actually doing good work and can be better at. But I think we have some really amazing experts in all fields regarding how we better our environment, how we better use our land. But I think we, again, this is one of those things that I would like to see that lens, just as, the diversity lens should be in every committee and on staff and with the board. It should be in every committee. Every decision that we make should be surrounding, how are we affecting our land? How are we affecting the humans that are on our land? And how do we move forward? So I support the recycling crew. I respect. Sorry, go.
Oh, all good, thank you. Try not to interrupt you, waiting for the end of the sentence, but Got to move on. Finally, Anne, for this question.
Okay, so my background is in stewardship of the land. I've worked with Indigenous communities on a number of projects to restore the land, to recognize the things that are important to these groups, just like there are things important to the fair. We talked earlier about COVID or other infectious diseases being an issue. We are currently faced with the emerald ash borer, which will potentially have a severe impact on our hardwood forests. And we need to understand these things much better. But we're moving forward. That's the big picture, but we're moving forward in small increments as durables become more used or utilized. You know, our compost will become better because there's not so much paper in it. One of the things I would love to see is a portion of our winery property being converted to a native plant nursery, and partnering with a variety of organizations who have the equipment and can provide us with some of this agricultural support in this. And I really see that as a potential to meet our stewardship goals and move forward. But we need to understand that just like everything else, like the river, the climate is changing, and we need to consider this in all our planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Awesome. That I didn't miss anyone there, right? That was those were a few tough questions, and I really appreciate everyone being so positive and collaborative and respectful. It's really inspiring in such a challenging time in the world, not just our organization. So thank you all. Very impressive. Okay, moving on to another question. We'll have time for, I think, 2 more. What are your suggestions for encouraging more membership participation in our elections, just generally? And we are starting this time with Kevin.
For more membership participation, you know, I could say something like more parties, right? You know, now that we're getting closer to getting back together, you know, I would love to see, you know, as far as more meet the candidates kind of thing. You know, a lot of folks don't have the Zoom or participate on the social media. So I think some more, you know, just events like that, you know, they don't have to be out at the fair. We can meet somewhere in town, you know, something like that. I think for more participation, really more reach out, just like, you know, more member input sessions, even, you know, Q&As, something like that. Yes, it's more challenging for us all, but here we are, you know, vying for the job. I think the members deserve as much of a voice as possible, and I definitely feel like they don't get a whole ton, you know, even with all that we do, we can do better, you know, and I'd love to have something like that. As crazy as that would be, you know, meeting everybody, everything, but I think that would be kind of a blast. And so I think more just get-togethers in general. So thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Arna, you're up.
Well, I like Kevin's idea of more like meet and greets with candidates, get-togethers like that, I think would be good. I think, you know, trying to register more voters. I think you guys get out the vote, do a really great job of trying to do that. But the thing is, I also know that we have a lot of registered voters who don't vote. So, you know, part of it is getting them to vote. Making it, you know, more interested in the election is sometimes very difficult. I think, you know, I know we just do the candidate statements now online. I don't know if putting out the pamphlet again would be helpful for people or not. I understand most people don't actually request a hard copy of that, so I don't know if that would make any difference again. More education, I think, out for the members would be helpful. You know, the importance of voting and what it really means. You know, I think a lot of people just don't understand what, you know, voting, what the board really does and why they should vote, you know, the importance of it. And I think just a more education for everyone to understand that could be helpful. I know I had some other to say that I have forgotten.
Well, thank you, Arna. That's perfect timing.
Okay.
Thomas, your turn.
Thank you. Well, I agree with what Arna said, and I think it's really when I was a teacher, we used to have we'd kind of take a focus each year and have community gatherings which focused on that, and kind of what Arna had mentioned just about getting out the vote and bringing people together in different ways at different times of the year to do that. As a community, we have technology now, so we can utilize that a little bit more effectively, maybe. People can access, if you're living in Ashland, you can access a meeting much more easily. I think definitely ensuring that important items are disseminated and that people have an understanding of those items and what the fair is trying to accomplish is important. Sometimes mailers can be a good way to do that. I certainly think having lots of open forms of communication and education, as Arna said, is a really is close to my heart, obviously, and I think that's an important part of what we should be doing, maybe perhaps more during the fair, more outreach like we do with the Jill Hyman Fund, getting information out there to people as the fair is in progress.
Thank you, Thomas. Ken, you are next on this one.
Thank you, Rebecca. Encouraging more participation by the members should start with downstreaming information to the members. We have not been good at that at all. Basically, from NAO on, it's just gone downhill. Limiting time at a board meeting is just kills the energy. I think the variety and newness of this slate of candidates is a very positive sign. I was very happy when I saw that list come out. So encouraging more participation by the members is basically let them have a part of the process, let them be a part of that process, give them information, and it'll grow by itself. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Dave, you're up.
Yeah, a lot of great things have been said so far. I just want to reiterate the education aspect. Increasing civic education about the duties of the board is important, and allowing opportunities for people to connect to board members, whether it's in board meetings or outside of. It seems like we do gather in various times, like our fair event or teddy bear picnic. Those are opportune times to have something that can engage the public or the membership on this topic. We also have the growth of technology and digital information exchange, and so kind of figuring out how that can assist in engaging people is important. Not everybody's on Facebook, and sometimes that's not as comprehensive as maybe other modes of communication. So really figuring out how to use technology in a way to engage people is important. I'm not sure what the silver bullet is, but it's probably involves a lot of different approaches. And I do agree with what Mambo said about just allowing for more membership engagement at board meetings. It is quite disappointing to have that kind of participation stifled by the limitations. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. John Steinhardt, you're next on this one.
Okay, thanks. I agree with a lot of what Tom and Mambo and Dave just said, so I'll try not to repeat it. Everybody in this house right now is an elected precinct person for a particular party. And what we find is that people leave their ballot sitting on their table and don't turn them in because they don't think it makes a difference. And I think we have a lot of that at the fair. That's what makes people get out and vote, is when they think their vote makes a difference. And the only way they're going to think it makes a difference is if they actually have good information from which to work with. And we're not very good at communicating. I like the thought of having more in-person things, but I have to say, I live 100 miles away. being able to attend meetings and communicate with people online allows much greater participation than we had pre-COVID, especially a lot of our crafters. They're not in the area the rest of the year. They're going festival to festival. It'd be really a great idea to allow them to be able to get together online to get information and have discussions. Maybe we need regular member input meetings that are separate from board meetings, because at board meetings, there is actually business that has to get done, and you can't just, go for 20 hours because a lot of people want to have input. So anyway, I think communication and better information is the best thing we can do to encourage people to think that their vote makes a difference.
Thank you, John. Katie?
Thank you. There's a lot of good things that people have said already, and I don't want to cover them again too much. But it's also important to remember that many people come to the fair for the party they have with their friends and their family. And then when they've gotten the job done for the event, they kind of fold up their tent flaps and they head home exhausted. And that opportunity right there for that feedback is one of the things that we miss, because people are exhausted, and then they come around again a couple of months later, and some of that feedback gets lost in the shuffle. So trying to figure out how to get some of that feedback right during the event before they head home could help us do a better job of having that interflow of communication. And the timing of any other events and meetings that we have matters. The online option, that's helpful. Putting out more information to people, that's going to be helpful. Getting those topics and meeting agendas out to more people ahead of time, that would be helpful. Another way to do that could maybe be to start having coordinator meetings again, so information can go from coordinators to crews. But another thought is that the food committee and the craft committee have been doing some really nice and effective town halls in the last couple of years. Something similar to that may work for our other membership as well. It would be a good venue to get information out to people. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. AJ, you are next.
Hello. So I know currently that our staff and our executive director is working on a database. I think that's super important. That database will allow members to opt in to receiving information and education about what's going on with the membership. So I would be pushing for that to go forward. Second, I would say that I'm hoping that the folks who are in this room tonight will agree to, I think it's important that we create education for our whole membership. So my thought processes are something like summits. So I put down here, a DEI summit is much needed right now, where we get experts in the field to come and do a summit and make it available to all of our membership. The same with an environmental summit, a philanthropy summit. And then lastly, I would say, and I'll spend a little time on this, and that is, I think we really need that second event. I think that second event, what that does, it helps us kind of celebrate each other for what we do for the community in our big event each year. We celebrate each other, we celebrate the membership, we celebrate the volunteers, and it provides another opportunity for education at that time. So those are my ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, AJ. Anne?
For membership participation, I really kind of like what Kevin said. I think we could use our zip codes to identify people, because I know there's people in this section of Washington or this section of Northern California, and they may not be aware of each other. There may be a food booth at fair that has a brick and mortar site there where people could actually meet and have these mini gatherings. I would like to say that the elders retreats have always been really nice. I started going to them as soon as I was an elder. I took my teenagers to it, and my sons were teenagers at the time, and they enjoyed it quite a bit, and it gave them a bigger understanding of the dynamics and the history of the fair. And you know, as we moved into our COVID area, I know for many people, they were not familiar with using Zoom, or as we earlier did, GoToMeeting. I was used to working cross country with people in Washington, DC, North Dakota, and anywhere on a variety of environmental issues. So it's changed our behavior in that we can actually communicate better and see each other. And I really appreciate seeing all of you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And finishing this question up for us, John Alexander.
And I love what you just mentioned. Community Village used to have satellite meetings and they were so great before COVID, but it's about relationships. I think that we need to clearly communicate what the role of the board is and how we are unique. We play a unique role that ideally enables our staff and our volunteers to do their jobs, not necessarily manages them. I think we need to measure ourselves by developing priority, measurable actions and report back to our membership about what we've accomplished that we set out to accomplish. We need to be advocates for our staff and membership and our volunteers, and thus develop the individual relationships through communications. I have loved reaching out to different people and hearing different people's stories over the last few weeks. It's been so important. Bring that just personal relationships with people, to bring that in. Direct individual communications. And while we want to encourage our regular participants to keep participating, we need to think of novel ways to invite new people to participate and ways to incorporate their input into into the business that we do. So it's not always necessarily maybe the forum that somebody mentioned, some of these other kind of ways of doing it. Might online voting be an option? And that was just a fun question, and just fun to hear everybody's answers. So I think it's about relationships and outreach. So that's what I'd like to keep doing.
Thank you, John. Okay, this is going to be our last question of the evening, and it's a bit of an open one. So of the topics not covered so far today, which would you say is the most pressing issue facing the fair? And we are starting with Arna.
I think one of our more pressing issues is population. And looking at both our internal population and our public, attendance. We do need to learn how to manage both of those. I know our treasurer has been doing spectacular work on, analyzing this issue, both in terms of our budget and, what we can have on the property. And this is really important. You're managing our population has a lot of different pieces to it. It has to do with our revenue, what our comfort level in terms of how many people we can comfortably have on there. I mean, this year was very comfortable for everybody, but we were missing a lot of our community. But it did help, I think, a lot of our crafts booths, because people could actually see what was in their booths and could walk around so easily. And every craftsperson I talked to had great sales. But we have to talk about, the sustainability of our population. There's a lot of different things to balance there. So it's a big issue, and it needs a lot of membership input. How do we envision our fair for the future? What do we want the next 10, 20, 30 years to look like? Do we want it to keep growing or not? And there's a lot of different information from different committees, but we need to put it all together. I can't see what the timer says, so you're kind of looking at me, Rebecca.
That was it.
Are we still good?
You're good. Nope, not anymore.
Okay.
I tried to do a little bit of smiling and nodding, but that was perfect timing. You sensed it. Thank you. And Thomas, you are next.
Okay. I agree with Arna. I mean, from a sustainability perspective, we have, things are being strained: recycling, water, toilet, showers, fire safety, trash, parking. Those things are being strained by the number of people that come to the fair. And there's, a cap at 35,000 people with 20,000 internal and 15,000 external. If there's going to be continued growth at the fair, really understanding the metrics for determining what the impact is sustainably, really understanding the impact that having fewer people has economically. Really understanding I know as a crafter my family, we had lots more time to talk to people on the path, which was really, really wonderful. And the experience was wonderful. But I also wonder sometimes just about the impact economically over time, because I'm really keenly interested in how we spend our philanthropic dollars on education. So that's a huge connector there. There's all these intersections that are occurring, and I think that really getting and understanding the direction we have around population is going to be at the center of that.
Thanks, Thomas. Great. Ken, you're next.
Thank you. This is a tough one because there are some major challenges. Population is one of the ones I mentioned earlier, some research I'm doing in terms of the state of Hawaii and the country of New Zealand limiting tourists, even though their economies are based on tourists, or the majority of their economies. But I have to get back to membership involvement. People have been treated very vilely by some members of the board. One of the things that is just evident is in the last 2 years, 3 people in a public board setting made racially insensitive remarks. And when you look at how those people were dealt with, there was a huge disparity. One of them was 86th. The other 2 were applauded, clapped for in some settings. That is the kind of dissonance that must be dealt with. When we resolve that, these other issues that are very pressing can be dealt with much more honestly and without pain in terms of personal trauma. And I really think that's where we need to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Dave, you're up.
Yeah, I love what's been said so far. Arna and Thomas kind of talked about something that I was going to. I'll try to build on that. The balancing of internal and external population and all the factors that complicate limits in that area. One thing that's important, that I feel like is important, is how do we maintain an openness to our greater community? How do we show everybody that we welcome new ideas, new creativity, new music, food, craft, that we're not just some internal closed organization that is kind of like, this is who we are, we're this is our family, and nobody new gets in. So kind of tackling that problem, especially as some of our founding members transition into new roles, and which I think is important to address. How do we find new roles for people to be productive, and also welcome in new energy and new ideas? So whether that's on the board, which is what we're doing now, or it's in our event, and how we structure our decision makers and committees and everybody that makes everything happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. John Steinhardt.
One of the things I do or had done in my outside life was work with small startup companies to get them to grow. And one of the things that normally happens in companies is they change the way they do business as they increase in size. It's actually remarkable how big the fair has gotten without us changing anything that we do. And it really isn't working very well anymore. The biggest thing that I think is important is to focus more on policies than people. Right now, whether you get a good camping spot or an extra pass or whatever, depends on who you know, not what the policy is. And when that's the way we do business, it's going to create conflict, which isn't really good. I talk to a lot of people just like John, but I can't know every one of 20,000 people now. It's just not possible. We really need more effective communication. One of the things that I'd really like to work on is people keep on saying we need to accommodate the youth, but we've never had an explicit conversation about it. It all kind of happens in the background. So I think communication really helps. And one of the things that we really need to do is follow through. I think almost every candidate here tonight, in an answer to some question, mention something we agreed to do that we just haven't gotten to yet, whether it's dishwashers or recycling slab or diversity goals. So I actually think the board needs to pay more attention to that, and maybe every month look at the things that we said we were going to do and see if we're actually doing them. Ooh, right on time.
Thank you, John. Katie?
John hit on one of the things I was actually going to say right there, which is we spin our wheels a lot on what to do. Setting up a plan for what we want to do and how we think we're going to take the steps to get there instead of circling over and over will benefit us in a lot of ways. Having a checklist that we can come back to and say, here's the things we want to do, here's why we want to do them, and here's the things we think we need to do that can get us there, will be the things that let this organization move forward. And that's one of the most important things I think that the board could focus on as they move forward into the next year.
Thanks, Katie. AJ?
I'm going to take a different tact. I think the most pressing thing for this organization is to recognize that we have a crisis of leadership right now. And we have to address our leadership at the top. That starts with the board. We have to address how we work together for the better of this organization. All of these things that everybody's mentioning are great things and will happen, but it only happens when we work together. I want to say it is an amazing privilege to be able to lead this organization and to put forth whatever motions you have and whatever goals you have for the betterment of the organization and for the betterment for our membership that votes for us. And so I'd like everybody to remember that going forward. If this team of folks, along with the people on the board, can come together and recognize that how we commit to working with each other, even when we disagree with each other, is so important and vital to the health of this organization, that needs to be the first thing we address. And I'm hoping that we all commit to addressing that when we come together, whoever's voted in, and with other folks that are still on the board. How do we begin to lead together for the betterment of this organization?
Thanks, AJ. Ian, your turn.
Thank you. I think the discussion on sustainability is really important because it fits into how we deal with finances, how we deal with populations, how we deal with our potential environmental threats from the emerald ash borer. And if you camp in the South Woods, you should be concerned. That's all I'm going to say about that. We need to address why people stop coming to the fair. And I think we also should look at how our SUP that makes us a private park allows us to do things and allows us to do things that may not normally be, that we may not normally be able to do if we were public or if we were just working through our non-conforming use. And we need to recognize that that SUP has a place in how we make our decisions and affects our sustainability. I just want to say I'm glad we could do this on Zoom. For family reasons, I have to be in the homeland of the Wabanaki, the people of the Dawn, and I wish you all good fortune. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. John Alexander, you're next.
Great. What a great night. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for everybody who's out there in Fairland listening. I want to start by acknowledging the committees. Some of these committees that we have are so well run. They're working with other committees. Let's take some notes from how they do things and bring that back to the board. I'm going to read something from the NAO thing, and I don't want to end with this, so I'm going to try to have enough time to say something more positive at the end. Well, first of all, real quick, in the 2 months running up to the fair, after a rough run of board meetings, I did love to see the board pivot to let's get it done, let's take care of business and put on a fair, and let's make sure we take care of our volunteers while we're doing that. That was really great. What the NAO report says is negativity within the organization is like a virus. It spreads. If you are not concerted in your efforts to stop it. The top priority of the board needs to be the leadership of turning this hostility backward and allow for compassionate relationships to take precedence once again. We need to do that through understanding what our roles are, taking the advice that we've been given and picking the best nuggets from that to help us set the tone of how we're going to do business with each other and make sure that we follow best practices in how we work with our staff and with our committees to make sure we turn this thing around and face the love and light and beauty that we're all here for, to make sure that we do this in a more positive and effective way. And maybe that'll help turn the dialogue that we see going on all those other things towards a more positive light as well. So let's lead by example and let's take responsibility. We're the leaders of this organization and we need to lead positively and collaboratively, non-camped, all one.
Thank you, John. And Kevin, you're going to finish us up.
Okay, thanks. Love that, John. Definitely. I agree with John, AJ. All these problems, population diversity, what Dave was saying about, getting more folks in here. This all starts with a functioning board. I don't know about the rest of you, if I have to hear something get tabled one more time. Really it's about getting together, working together, making decisions, reviewing those decisions. It's okay to make a decision and then come back to it and then redo it again. Even, we're not doing things and trying them. How are we going to know it's going to work? And I really think with effective leadership is how we turn this ship around. It's how we get back to making things happen and working together and showing everybody that it is possible to work together and that it doesn't have to be strife. We can get back to, I'd like to see more of the member input. I think John hit the nail on the head. I think the board should have special sessions for just strictly member input. We need to hear from these folks, the board is here to serve everyone and not itself, and so that's where that starts, from the bottom up, as Arne once said. And so really leading and being positive and working together as being an example of the organization and what all of us do and all the volunteers and what everyone works hard for. I think that's where it's at. And I like this crew I'm seeing, everyone, we know a bunch of us to get on there and even the ones that don't, that's okay. I think we're on the way. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Thank you all. Excellent words tonight. And I wish you all a ton of luck. And I'm passing the mic back over to Brett to close this out.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, everyone. This is another point where I wish I had sound effects and we could have some applause, because you all deserve it. So there we go. So do all of you at home for watching. An organization is only as strong as its members and its leadership, and we have a fabulous fair family. We have 11 great candidates running for the board this year. A big thank you from all of us to you for stepping up to lead this organization that we all love. A reminder for everyone at home, please make sure to get those ballots turned in. You have until Saturday, October 22nd. On Saturday, October 22nd, ballots will be due to the fair office by 8 p.m. and the results will be released on Sunday, October 23rd. Again, there's more information about all 11 of the candidates in the voters pamphlet that's available on the OregonCountryFair.net website. Go to that page and click on the elections link, and all of the information's there, as well as contact information for all of our candidates. Last thing I have to say is support the fair. If you're looking for some great gift ideas, go to merch.OregonCountryFair.org. There's stuff you can order to give to your friends. There's t-shirts, there's swag, there's posters, bandanas, canvas sacks, and more. You can also make a donation. I think I got through all the announcements. I had the easy job tonight. Rebecca, you did a fabulous job. Thank you so much. And I have to say again, thank you to our Get Out the Vote team and to Vanessa and the fair staff. Thanks for all your help to make this happen. Again, thank you to all of you at home. Remember to vote and have a fabulous evening. Thank you all.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks, Rebecca. You rock. Good work, Brett. Hope you're not sweating too much out there. It's sun's going down here. I don't know how you're doing it.
Thanks a
Great
lot.
job, everybody.
Thanks,
The
everyone.
cleanest I've ever been after 2 hours in piggy ladder.
Don't you have any virtual dust?
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
See ya.
Very interesting.
Thanks.
Good night,
Hey,
everyone.
hey, Kevin, you have time to talk tonight?
I won't, John.
Okay.
I'm going to Rome again. I'm going back.
Okay.
To
Give me a call sometime.
after this. Thanks, man. We'll talk.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right.